Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name's Savannah Herinque if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Tuesday, October the 12th, and big surprise, we're still talking about football. Now, we are coming off of a weekend where that is all anybody could talk and think about, and I know yesterday we talked about Alabama and Auburn, and a little UAB as well, and those games over the weekend, but today we're going to talk about something a little different, and that is spring football. Now, I know everybody is into football right now during the fall. You're into your college teams and your NFL teams, but there is a possibility of some spring football coming to Alabama, specifically Birmingham. The public learned about this yesterday, the possibility of the city officials and the BJCC considering a proposal to bring the relaunch of the U.S. Football League to Birmingham in the spring of 2022. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And there's also something that makes this talk about spring football a little bit different than the other conversations we've had about spring football before. So today I am joined by our own Roy S. Johnson. Roy is here today to talk a little bit about the league, about the game, and about, again, how this is different than the conversations we've had in the past. So first, Roy, thanks for joining us today. But after that, we have to look at the conversations we've had about spring football over and over and over again. You've been in Birmingham now for a while, and even in the time you've been here, I'm sure that you've had this conversation many a times. Spring football or kind of off-season sports coming to Birmingham. So what makes this proposal to bring the relaunch of the USFL to Birmingham a little bit different?
Well, Ivana, this is really an intriguing proposal that was brought to the city by Fox Sports. And when you talk about spring football, it's not just Birmingham, but spring football is very, very difficult. Several leagues have tried to create something that will capitalize on the vast and almost unquenchable thirst for football by putting something in the spring. But football is expensive. Football is challenging. And sometimes while you might be a fan, you might be distracted in the spring. So they don't get the interest, particularly at the box office, that they would like. So what makes this intriguingly different is that it is a programming play for Fox Sports and its partners, NBC Sports. And what I mean by that is the league is totally owned by Fox Sports. They have invested well over $100 million to own this league in order to create television program in the spring. So it is not a business model that is based on ticket sales. It is a model that is based on their ability to put something on that will draw a certain amount of eyeballs against which they can sell advertising. And that advertising will almost exclusively and certainly primarily be national advertising. It won't necessarily be local advertisers. They won't necessarily be coming after local sponsors because their audience is out there. Part of the reason they're coming, they propose this to Birmingham, primarily, quite frankly, is Protective Stadium. My understanding is that the head of Fox Sports was watching the building of the stadium through the cam that was following that for months and was intrigued by the opportunity and the idea of playing here. You also have cost of living. You've got a lot of things in place that give them an opportunity to create something unique. And what's also unique about it is they're doing a sort of a bubble concept. Many people remember last year when the NBA went into the bubble because of COVID-19. They didn't have any fans. They took all their teams to one location and basically insulated them against the pandemic. So this idea was created in the midst of that in their first season, bring all the teams to one city, play 43 games in this one place, bring all of your league officials, your players, all your broadcast personnel, bring everyone to one place for 12 weeks, at least 12 weeks, because the games go between April and July. And for the first year, create this bubble opportunity. So all the games would be played in Birmingham, even though there would be 8 different teams. So again, this is purely a television play that, at least from my perspective at this point, is a great opportunity for the city to capitalize on this new stadium, to fill it with activity over an extended period of time. Certainly there are a lot of details to work out, but it's hard for me to see why this is not a big plus for Birmingham in the spring of 22, at a time when we'll still be coming out of the economic effects of COVID-19. When you think about what happens when all those people are here for that long and just how that spreads out in terms of food. It's over 40,000 hotel nights. I mean, do the math on that at about $125 a night. I mean, that's a lot of revenue that's going to be generated for the BJCC. And of course, tax revenue on that goes to the city. So I know there's a lot of talk and discussion about the costs of it, but now it's the opportunity to see if the city can really put on its big boy pants and pull off something that's pretty unique.
Well, and you had a little bit of a background, kind of a brief background on the US Football League, the USFL, in your column or in your story, excuse me, from the other day. And something that you noted I thought was interesting. You said they originally launched in 1983 and they lasted 3 seasons. Now, they announced their kind of relaunch in June, but 3 seasons is not very long. But again, we go back to what we were talking about a minute, Roy, and that is that the model before was based more on those ticket sales, was based more on the traditional model of bringing people to sporting events. Now, this new model, if it's based more on the programming and having the content really to fill those channels schedules, that could make a huge difference, especially again if you mention that kind of bubble effect of bringing everybody to Birmingham, have all of the games, everything in Birmingham for that 3 to 4 month period. It's kind of a win-win in some situations if it works. It's a win for Fox. It's a win for the broadcasters because they get a football game that people will turn on, whether they watch it or not, they will turn it on and have it on. Then you also get a win for Birmingham. You look again, all of those hotel room rates, which we all know if you have stayed in a hotel ever, you know that they are pricey, especially if you want a nicer hotel. They get very pricey very quick. You look at the restaurants because people are probably not going to be cooking in their hotel rooms, right? So you look at all of this revenue that it could bring to the city, and it really looks like it could be beneficial on both ends. So what is the catch here, Roy? It sounds a little bit too good to be true in that aspect.
Well, the catch is it is such a unique idea. I mean, let's step back from this for 1 second. Anytime something big and new happens, let's face it, this is not an area and a region that embraces change and big ideas very quickly. So this has happened in a relatively short period of time. Discussions have been ongoing for a few months, but it is a big idea, and people are sometimes slow to embrace change and big ideas. But trust me, there are other cities that are waiting for this to be offered to them. There are other cities that would jump at this opportunity. Not that it's perfect. Obviously, as I said, there are logistical things that have to be worked out. There are a lot of local, I guess, stakeholders that just have to be brought into the fold to ensure that they understand all the things that will have to happen from operationally, just how it affects things logistically. We've certainly got, the World Games have to be appraised of what's going on because it's kind of going to come right up against the World Games coming in too. So I can see why people want to have due diligence and discussions about what it's going to take on the city's part in order to make this happen. But I can't imagine a scenario that whether it's, where the cost, whether it's the dollars or some other peripheral costs are so great to turn this down. Because again, it's only for 1 year. The Fox is committed for 3 years to do the league. They have the funds to do it. After this year, the teams will be located in their various cities. And it is my understanding that Birmingham will have a team. So there will be a team in Birmingham. And next year, not next year, 2023, it would only be 5 or 6 home games. So this is a 1 year opportunity to bring several hundred people to the city at a slow time. And people have to eat. They will attend, go to museums. They will do a lot of things during that time. And it'll be an opportunity for Birmingham to be on national television 43 times during the spring to be showcased, to have protective showcase. So you may not be able to measure the impact of that, the eventual economic impact of that exposure on national TV. But whatever it is, I imagine it totally overwhelms and trumps whatever costs it might the city might incur in trying to make this happen.
Well, and then we look too at some sporting events we have across Alabama. I'm in Birmingham, so I'm more familiar with this one. But you look at the Barons, and I know it's a different business model, but you have plenty of people who go to Barons games to enjoy just being there, to enjoy the atmosphere and the social aspect of it. They could not name for you a player on that team. They could not name for you the score or anything that is actually relevant to the sport. They go because it is a fun event. So while this possibility of the USFL coming to Birmingham, it could be a similar outcome where people, while they're not maybe dependent on ticket sales, people could come to the games as a social event. Protective Stadium is the new shiny thing in the city. People could go enjoy it and not necessarily be there because their favorite player is on that team. Now, interesting question here, Roy, and this is something, again, we had talked about, and I think it's on everybody's minds. It's from Laura, and she says, hasn't spring football been tried here and lost a lot of money? So who covers that loss? And I'm just adding on to her question, why try it again?
Well, once again, this is a totally different model. She's absolutely right. It has been tried before. It's been tried in the traditional modeling, when since there's an ownership of the league and of the team, and they're dependent so much on local revenue. They're dependent on ticket sales. They're dependent on local sponsorship to try to survive. And yes, people will come to the games, but maybe not enough to justify the exorbitant costs of football. This is a different model. The costs, most of the costs, are being taken care of by Fox Sports. There are some operational costs of opening the stadium, paying people to work the stadium. So there are some costs, but nothing like the cost of really having an entire football team and the operation of that. So it's like, think differently. Don't think about this as the way spring football has been done in the past. Think about it like a game show. This is a game show that's being created to put on television. When you go to a game show, the tickets are free. I don't think these tickets will be expensive. Yes, of course, they'll want fans in the stands. They'll probably be working with local schools and entities to get as many people in the stands as possible. They want people to be excited about the games, but they're not dependent on ticket sales in order for it to survive. So at least for 3 years, it seems like the funding is there for this to happen. And then the entity, Fox Sports, will see what happens, see if it's worth it for them to move forward from there.
Well, and you kind of mentioned that this is similar to a game show, not the actual content of it, but the programming of it, right? And the plan. So you look at, say, a Wheel of Fortune, they are not really depending on people to come to the taping of Wheel of Fortune or come to even, say, a live game show. I don't know any off the top of my head, but people are not planning on making money from people attending that taping, that live viewing, et cetera. It is dependent on the people at home turning it on. Now, I know that we're kind of moving away from cable, right? We're getting into the streaming services. Roy, you and I both have some streaming services and something that's replaced traditional cable, and I talked you into that one. But
You absolutely did.
when you scroll through your live feed, you sometimes maybe don't really need to watch something. Maybe you're working and you want something on in the background. A lot of us choose that sporting event that we see. Maybe there's a soccer game on, we can put it on in the background. Maybe there's a football game on for a team that you're not that interested in. Maybe you're not an Eagles fan, but you say, well, I like football. I'll keep the Eagles game on so I can talk about it later. So I know what's going on. And I put that on, I continue to do what I'm doing. That is still making money for that channel, for that event. So, Roy, do you expect something similar to happen with this whole process if it proceeds?
And also, we have the opportunity now to record things much easier than we have in the past. So you might just put the USFL in your library, so to speak, and just have the games recorded and watch them at your leisure. And here's another aspect of this, and I know it doesn't necessarily play into the business model. For better or worse, football is a huge betting sport. So, people who like to bet on sports will do so almost no matter what the sport is. So I can imagine this will also generate a lot of interest in Las Vegas, in the growing online betting community. And I don't know all the entities, but sports fans certainly know, and they're participating in those apps and in those platforms that are allowing for for betting on sports. I imagine that that's also sort of a peripheral idea here that is going to generate interest among those people who love to bet on sports.
Mhm.
So again, the play here for Fox Sports is bigger than Birmingham, but they're bringing to Birmingham the opportunity to do this in this city for 1 year, and there's not much pressure on the local marketplace to make it a success. It's not a total gift horse, but it's pretty close in terms of being able to have spring football without the pressure of having to economically support it and risk it going down at any given moment.
Well, and you say that Fox, could be giving a big opportunity to Birmingham here. We know you mentioned earlier that it has been said that somebody at Fox Sports was watching Protective go up, was very excited about Protective. You also look at cost of living in Birmingham is pretty good. If they're going to have a group of people stay here for several months, Birmingham's a better option than at some of the larger cities. It's going to cost more. But Roy, this is a great proposal. We're talking about this, and this is something that people could really get excited about, could bring a lot of money to the city. What is next? How do we secure this deal, and will we secure this deal?
Well, what's next is essentially removing the doubt. I mean, there's going to be doubters in any situation. Anytime you bring a big idea or something that could have an impact, there's going to be doubt. So the biggest challenge is to mitigate that doubt and to let those doubters see that the upside here far exceeds any question marks that they might have. So it's not to diminish their questions, it's not to diminish their concerns, but to convey that the upside opportunity here on so many levels mitigates all of that, and it's worth taking the risk. So those conversations will certainly be taking place, if they're not already taking place, after yesterday's meeting with the BJCC board. They're taking place behind the scenes, because I'm certain that an announcement wants to be made, probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks, that this is either going to happen here or it's going to happen somewhere else.
Well, and that's something you look forward to. I'm going to just ask you one more time, Roy, because we've gotten this question several times, and that is, who's going to pay the bills for this?
Most of the bills for operating the sports entity will be paid by Fox Sports. They own the league, they own the teams. They're going to pay for that. There will be expenses related to opening the stadium, to paying people to do that. And certainly there will be, expenses that have to be accounted for by the BJCC and any entity that hosts those games. So, but the preponderance of the expenses to operate the league in the city will be paid by Fox Sports.
Well,
and they'll pay for all those 44,000 hotel rooms too.
And all those meals. Think about multiple, at least 3 meals a day. If you're me, it's probably a 6 meal a day type of situation. So a lot of money could be coming from that. So Roy, I know you will keep us up to date about that deal. We will look maybe in the next month or so to see if we have any news on if that is going forward. So we will keep our eyes open on AL.com and from our updates from you.
All right. Yes, we will.
Thank you so much, Roy.
You're
Everybody,
welcome.
thank you so much for watching. We're going to put the link here to Roy's story as well, so you can get all of that information that we just discussed. And Roy, again, his continuing coverage will be on AL.com. We'll try to link that here as well. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.